What is on the other side of fear? This is day 97 of 100 Days of Surrender. I want to talk about the other side of fear and what we're doing in or how we are unknowingly succumbing to fear, giving into fear. I've spent the last 97 days facing every fear, every insecurity, every discomfort, every distraction, and putting it all aside and looking at what's my truth and what's my highest timeline. So let's break it all down on what are we doing, right? So we've all had some form of trauma in our life. We've all had some form of neglect or abuse or challenges. And what happens is we start to tell a story about how insignificant we are. We start to tell a story about who am I to bring this forward. We start to tell the story of I'm not worthy, I'm not capable. And we navigate in the most dysfunctional way of here's what I'm feeling, so let me display the opposite of it in an attempt to have no one see it, right? So I did two different things with my life. I swung drastically in between here's what I'm afraid of, boom, let me over demonstrate it. And so that way you don't know what I'm afraid of. That way I'm not small, right? And in my 20s, let me tell you, holy shits. I came across as a total know-it-all. I want it to be important so bad. I want it to be valued. I want it to be accepted so bad. I grew up in being bounced around like a ping pong ball up until about nine-ish, 8, 9, somewhere in there. So being filtered through a lot of different families, and I was very intuitive, very psychic. I'm a generational psychic. So I would try to morph myself to be adapted, to be kept, and not being my authentic self. I just spent all my time reading and analyzing and figuring it out. And then in my teens, my parents became Jehovah's Witnesses. So I didn't develop proper social skills at all. I was put into this very small box of control and fear and rules and restrictions. And I was only allowed to socialize with people in the same faith. I wasn't allowed to socialize externally. And let me tell you, they're a bunch of like the kids that I was socializing with, no freaking social skills whatsoever. Like we were all just in this box of fear trying to navigate our teenage years. Not really being our authentic self, again, competing because, the dating pool was super small and the social pool was super small. So unknowingly, there was a lot of like competition on like who's going to be accepted and who's going to be a leader of the pack and like all this stupid energy. So I didn't get valued. I didn't have close friends. I didn't have any of these things. Plus, I was like so not into that faith whatsoever. So I was the rebellious one that everybody was like very cautious about. And their parents warned them about me, like, she's not good. She's not good to associate with. So massively rejected and judged. And then I move into my 20s and I leave that faith. And leaving that faith was the hardest, most traumatic thing I've ever done in my life. I've had a lot of shit happen to me, but that was super hard, walking away from this really deep subconscious imprint about being a failure and being judged and being consistently watched for your actions and thoughts. Real hard. And so I move into my 20s and I move into the corporate world. And I have a lot of valuable skill set, plus I'm highly intuitive. So I was extremely successful in everything I did, but that caused more judgment from the people who were working alongside me. And I can remember a couple of times, like I've had massive sales training, massive, like all of these like corporate skills, because I started working very young for a company that trained me. And I was really successful. So I would like blah, 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 all of my information and try to share and try to be of value to the people I was working with subconsciously in order to be accepted and to not be judged. But whew, man, that set me up for a lot of shit. I had a lot of bullies in my workplace in my 20s. And when I look back, it's so cringy. Like I cringe over who I was. I was like, oh, girl. Ooh, stop already. But she just didn't know better. She was just trying to find some form of acceptance. And then you move into your 30s, and then you're trying to find acceptance for me, for love, and all of those things. And so these imprints we get as a child unknowingly start to impact how we present ourselves in the world. So because I so deeply desired to be accepted, when I was in my 20s, I don't know if I've shared this the hardest day of my life, actually. My husband and I, so I got married at 18, a lot of pressure to marry this man. I'm not even gonna talk about him because anyway, I married at 18, really pressured into doing that and didn't want to, cared very much for this man, but didn't understand love at this point. And I don't think he was worthy of my love either. But anyway, 2 surprise babies and a divorce by the time I was 24. So I have 2 kids going through a divorce, and the faith, the religion, because I was pressured into being baptized at 14, highly pressured, I had to, because I was baptized, dedicated to this faith. 23, 24, I can't do it. I can't meet that bar. It's not in my nature. It's just against my grain. Completely disowned by absolutely everyone. Absolutely everyone. I was disfellowshipped, so not allowed to talk to my family. That little bit of social circle I had, my husband's family at the time, who were my only resources, and completely shunned out of all of that. And that was really hard to go through. And then my husband and my father helped him with his lawyer fees. Awesome, thanks. To take the children away from me. And they did everything in their power to hide my babies. My daughter was turning 5, my son was 1. And so she was like 4.5, he was 1-ish. And they did everything to hide them from me for years. So I'm going through this insane divorce. I'm 24, I'm still a baby. Going through this insane divorce process, having my children hidden from me, and trying to navigate in a world outside of that faith, which I'd never been a part of. And so the fear of being accepted, I just didn't want anyone to see how broken I was. So I tried way too hard, and it came across as being a know-it-all, which put a lot of competition and a lot of judgment and resentment towards me. And then as I moved into my 30s, I became the healer for all of the relationships I attempted to go into. Because if I was healing and supporting them, then I would be of value and they wouldn't cheat on me or abuse me the way I'd been abused. And so we push unknowingly these beliefs, these stories that we're holding on to so tight as some form of our identity. And that creates dysfunction in our world. So early 30s, I've been doing this work a long time and had been moving through my journey. There's just a lot of shit to move through. And I'm not trying to compare it to other people's shit. I had many layers to move through. And, as you know better, you do better. And with my career, I can take people as far as I've gotten. So every level that I got to, I could take people to that level. And that's still how I approach what I do. And so unknowingly, we sabotage ourselves. We create dysfunction, disharmony in our lives. And that fear is so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable. And often we're in denial over, I'm okay, I've done this, like I've got this, because we don't want to look at it, because we don't want to be judged for it. We don't want to be pushed away, rejected, be invisible, or be abused or hurt or be small. So we go on this journey of trying to be strong, or I did anyway, and try to figure it out. And when we stop to look at the fear, it hurts a lot. Like it's super uncomfortable. But when we move through it, what we're doing is transforming that belief structure internally. So that changes our energy, our vibration, which changes the outcome. So looking at your fears is so important. And you can move through them within a few hours, sometimes a couple of days, sometimes a couple of weeks, depending on how deeply rooted and what it's connected to. And so I've made it my mission on this planet to support people with that. That's what the Divine Alignment Program is looking for, going on a treasure hunt of what's that story? What's that belief? And how do we restructure that? How do we heal that, transform that into something that's serving for you? And it's been a beautiful journey. And as you guys know, I've gone through another layer of myself over the last week, the last 97 days. It's so fascinating to see how I was distracting myself. Um, I made it a goal to take alcohol out of my weekly routine because I would always have a glass or two, sometimes 3 glasses of wine in the evening when I was done work. So I took that out. So I only have that on the weekends now. And the epiphanies that I've had because of this, because of not allowing myself to be distracted by TV or social media or my phone or work after work hours, which has been really hard on a lot of my friends and a lot of my clients because I was always so available and now I'm not because I need to be focused on my highest timeline. So I know there's a couple of people in my life who are really hurt by that I'm just not there all the time, but I need to do this for me and for my purpose in the world. And that's uncomfortable. So that's a fear, right? So on the other side of fear, every time that you discover something and you bring awareness to it, it begins to transform on its own. And if you understand the tools on how to rewire your neurological patterns to transform that wound into something that really does serve you, I'm telling you, on the other side of fear comes courage. So there's a lot of different moving pieces here. Courage is the first thing. You will understand how brave you've been the entire time. And that vibration allows you to take yourself to the next level. And this isn't a race. We don't want to force ourselves to the next level, but we are here for our own evolution, our own awakening or ascension. I just think it's evolution. So we discover courage. We discover our authentic self. We discover that inner babe who knows what they're here for. We discover soul purpose. We discover clarity. And then the coolest thing happens. There's 12 universal laws. One of them is the law of inspired action. When we remove distraction, when I removed wine too, I could go into that pain. I didn't realize that, obviously wine, alcohol is numbing us down. It's bearing something, whatever. Like we all know this. But me removing it just like Sunday through Thursday allowed me to go into my pain points on a much deeper level and go through that pain and go through the emotion and experience it moving through my body and releasing itself and transforming itself. So that was so powerful. And then removing distractions. And it's not comfortable. I'm on day 97 and it has been eye-opening how much I have distracted myself. And I think we're all doing this to some degree. So I was distracting myself with TV or social media, my phone, answering emails, being available to my clients after hours, distracting myself socially, distracting myself with going out and having a good time, distracting myself with wine and surrendering into relaxation. And instead, I've taken 97 days to sit and process myself. And I've done a tremendous amount of work my whole life, guys. It doesn't make you, and this is one of my fears, it doesn't make you less evolved or less capable of soul purpose or more broken or less awakened by having fears. And these are comments that I've gotten before when I am vulnerable about, oh, I just discovered something in my inner child. I just discovered a limiting belief. They were like, well, this is what you do for a living. Like, how do you, like, I thought you would be more evolved than this. And I'm like, fuck you. Number one, that's usually my response. I laugh and say, fuck you. Two, this journey is endless. And there's a lot of us that have a lot of deep pain. And we can fix, it comes up in layers, guys. It comes up in layers. And for you to evolve into a higher version of it yourself, you've got to figure out what's holding you back from that. Otherwise, we'd already be there. We'd already be at, the big vision. We'd already be there if we weren't leveling up all the time. So this is an endless journey with no destination. It's just a journey towards what is it you desire to experience. And we're going to every layer. We're going to be like, oh, oh, like I had this phenomenal conversation with my partner last night. And we were talking about, we've been together 2.5 years. And well, obviously we've had a little breakup that you guys are aware of during this journey here, but here we are. When we took that time apart to evaluate what we were each contributing, and this is, I think, where a lot of couples go wrong, is we're looking at what they're not doing or what they are doing that's not working. We're not looking at ourselves. And so we spent that time apart unknowingly each evaluating what was I contributing towards the failure of our relationship or the disconnect or the disharmony. And it's beautiful. We had this amazing conversation last night about, what it looks like when we decide to habitate together, like to live together. We're not ready for that. I really like my space. So does he. So there's that. But when that happens, what is it that's blocking that from happening? And what would it look like for us? So we dove into what are my fears in living with him and his daughter? What are his fears with me being, a mentor in the house for her, a support system, a friend for her? What would her fears look like? What would his fears look like? Where have we been unknowingly blocking or sabotaging, leveling up that family dynamic? So this is across the board with everything. There's going to be areas in your life where you are going more into comfort, also known as self-sabotage, but moving more into comfort instead of riding that edge of the top of your comfort zone in order to move that up. And not everybody functions this way, not everybody lives this way, but I want to change a million lives. So I need to desire to be the best version of myself for this journey. And I take it really seriously, my energy, and I take my journey very seriously. I take my energy very seriously and what I'm offering to the world, because I would never want to misguide someone. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to hold hands and raise up whoever I can, right? So I'm pretty focused on myself and what am I going through, because I really truly want to live the best possible experience. So yeah, on the other side of fear, we're going to have all of this clarity come through. It's uncomfortable to go through. And one of my mottos, I had two sort of mindsets in my late teens when I was going through prepping for friggin' wedding and marriage that I've held on to. So the first one was, if I had started then, I would already be there. And so that really rung through with me because there's so many things that I procrastinated. And if I'd started then, I would have already been where I desire to be. So that mindset allowed me to be like, okay, where do I want to be? And what are those steps going backwards from that look like for me in order for me to move into that? So I'm very aware of what's my next step, whether that's internally, externally, what is that? Then the other piece, and I totally lost sight of it because I got distracted. There was two mindsets. Oh, I looked at my pain as a suitcase full of rocks. Kind of have two different analogies on this. A suitcase full of rocks, and it hurt more dragging that around and trying to hide it than it did opening it. So your discomfort in going into your pain is temporary. It's temporary. All of the pain that you're holding on to, when you choose to look at it, it is temporary. But lugging around that baggage, trying to hide it from the world, is not temporary. So you have to be brave enough to go into those pieces and look at, what can I take out of this suitcase today, or this month, or this week, or what wants to come out, what's surfacing for me. So that was a really powerful, once I found my first pain point. And I found my first pain point because I just went through numb, you guys. I was on autopilot. I was trying to be the best mom that I could based on knowing what not to do. I was trying to create family dynamic. I was going through school. I was still working full time. I was trying to fit into this box of religion, and I was on autopilot. And I remember there's two pivotal moments of, one, I found a book on energy healing. So I would have been just 18 and married. I started reading it and playing with it. And I was like, wait a minute, I can do this. And that was so against my faith. So I felt like I was the devil. And then the second thing was I went to a yoga class, my first yoga class ever, which was also against my faith. Meditation was absolutely not accepted. It's funny how now they've changed their ways and meditation is part of their process. But 25 years ago, it was not allowed. That was devil worship. And so I secretly went to a yoga class in meditation. And during the meditation, tears were pouring down out of my eyes. My body was numb, tears flooding and filling up my ears because I was lying down on the mat. And I was like, whoa, what pain is going on here? So that's when I sort of looked at like, what luggage have I been, or baggage have I been lugging around trying to hide? And then the second analogy that really served me well, and this one came through at 14 in a download. I was gardening. My dad was a massive slave driver. Like it was endless chores. And if you got your chores done, then he'd make more. And we were not allowed to have fun. It was like, this was quality family time to him. And that was how he liked to spend his family time, was like creating things in the yard or stacking wood or what are endless chores, to the point where it would break my body down and I couldn't walk for a day or two. But anyways, we were gardening and he had gotten this big truckload of manure, and my job was to take the manure with the wheelbarrow to all the gardens on this acre property that was like a steep hill. So this wheelbarrow of shit, and crumble it and tuck it in and around all the plants. Awesome, right? Disgusting for me. And I remember breaking it, and I talk to everything. Like I talk to the plants, I talk to, so I would just be sitting there talking to the flowers, being like, wait, this is supposed to be nurturing for you. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom. This leads me to my second point about inspired action. I was like, holy shit, this is my life. There's this disgusting manure. All the shit that's been put on me is the fertilizer for my growth. I'm going to do something with this pain. I'm going to do something with this story. I'm going to do something with being an excessively abused, neglected child. I'm going to do something with that for the world. So I wonder how I'm going to understand that. And I was 14. And I just felt that plant be like, yeah, you got it. You got it. So as we start to unpack this luggage and we stop hiding it, and we go into that temporary pain that's going to move through you, and then it's gone. It's gone. It's so freeing when it leaves. And when we create space, my last point here, the 12 universal laws, there's one called the law of inspired action. It's a law, it's fact, that when you create space, the law of inspired action, your compass will go boop, and it will come through the ego self. So that deep soul purpose, that soul energy, your internal compass will say, this is the next step. And it will float through your ego self, the human brain. So the human brain will have an idea, a conception, a knowing, a trust, oh my God, that's it. And it's beautiful. And that is how you navigate what you're here to do. That's how you discover your soulmate twin flame. That's how you align with them, is through the law of inspired action. I mean, your energy has to align too, but the law of inspired action will guide you to your twin flame. It will guide you to unlimited wealth. It will guide you to the program, purpose, whatever it is that you're bringing to the world. It will guide you to clarity of being a better parent. It will guide you to clarity on what your body is asking for. It will guide you. And it's inevitable. If you think about your GPS system in your car, okay, or on your phone, no matter how many times you go off, that GPS will reroute, and it will advertise that it's rerouting. It will tell you. And the further you go, it'll be like rerouting, rerouting, rerouting. Like, pay attention here. We're going to give you the answers. But if we're too distracted, if we're numbing, if we're avoiding, we can't hear it. And we'll just keep rerouting and rerouting and rerouting. But the moment that you create space, you'll hear the direction. It'll come through. It's the law of inspired action. It's a universal law. We're not meant to be lost. We're not meant to hold this pain. We're not meant to drag that luggage. We are not meant to do that. We are meant to discover what we have gone through, what you have gone through, what you have endured, what you have moved through, everything that's happened to you that is the manure is part of your purpose on this planet because you know how to move through that. You can lead another soul family member through that. That's what we're here for. So all of this contrast, this heaviness that we've had, it's all part of what you came here to teach. It's what you came here to be a leader for. So when we look at it through that lens, we're like, oh, I don't want to avoid it anymore. And that's why I do these deep dives. And I know I'm extra. Like I'm super freaking extra. I am highly aware of that. I'm so extra that I had to do 100 days of this and be vulnerable on YouTube with it. So you don't have to do it that way. Although I will say, ooh, sharing this journey over the last 97 days, the amount of emails and love messages and support and men and women emailing me and being like, I've never resonated with a message so much. I don't feel alone. I feel inspired. Thank you. I'm looking at myself. Or, oh my gosh, you shared that. I went through that too. And I hadn't noticed. Here's what I just discovered that I was fighting from. Oh, that's awesome, you guys. Watching people fall in love with themselves, there's nothing better. There is nothing better than knowing that my dorky, quirky, vulnerable, spicy self has somehow inspired a change in another human. And it makes everything I've gone through so worth it. And it wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. I would just have figured it out a little bit sooner. But here we are. So yeah, there we are, day 97. Loving it. Get that inspired action flowing. Have a look at what's in that luggage, what's in the baggage that you've been hiding, that you've been dragging behind you, trying to hide it in the shadows. And let's continue to move forward. All right. Day 97. I'll see you tomorrow.